I did want to react to this recent Breaking Points clip as well, because we've been following Matthew McConaughey's potential political ambitions with some interest. I personally just think it's hilarious watching this guy interact, but apparently not everyone feels that way. Some people really find him quite inspiring, and I guess among those people is Saagar Enjeti. Again, I understand at first wanting to give Matthew McConaughey the benefit of the doubt, and I even said at the beginning when it was floated that he might run, I was like, if he wants to embrace the right policies, if he wants to come out, he's swinging for universal health care and, union rights and all those good lefty values. I would totally be in support of that. And I really generally have no problem with outsiders in the political realm getting into politics. And obviously, personally, I just like Matthew McConaughey. Some of his performances are among my favorites ever, like Dazed and Confused, for example, or Harmony Korine's The Beach Bum. Let's not forget. Great actor. So, you want to like the guy. You want to give him credit. You want him to be a based populist, etc. But he's been making the rounds lately, the interview circuits. He's been going all sorts of media outlets to get asked tough questions, and in my opinion, guys, it's been straight cringe. But again, apparently not everyone feels this way. But yeah, let's take a look at this segment real quick, and then we can get into some more details about this, because I thought this was really interesting, and again, a little bit of an unexpected commentary from someone who I thought might do a better job of calling out McConaughey's clear bullshitting in this regard. But let's take a look.
So let's move on to a story very close to our hearts. I love this story. You guys know I love outsiders, and I love whenever they start to engage in politics. This one, Matthew McConaughey, who I've watched for quite a long time. Now, remember, he's leading in the polls there, Governor Abbott, by 9 points. Now, you could say, look, he hasn't been defined yet. He hasn't picked a political party and all of that. Well, he has broken his silence about whether he's going to run for governor. He's even addressed why he hasn't actually waded into any specific actual policy matters. And Marshall and I found it really interesting. It was an interview with the New York Times, which, Matthew, if you're ever listening or watching, go to somebody else next time because you'll get a better interview. Let's take a listen.
You said politics needs redefinition, so why not redefine it? Who? What's that?
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, please help. I'd love to hear some definitions. I'm working on what I'm trying to understand politics to be. I think we got to redefine politics. If each party's only about preservation of party, well, I'm almost arguing that's undemocratic. If you're only there to, by hook or by crook, preserve your party, you're leaving out 50% of the people. So I think politics needs a redefining. Look, are the parties so extreme right now that they're going to walk their way into extinction? I don't know. What our fear is, great nations aren't taken over from the outside. They implode. Civil war. That's the big fear for me, for the country, is this path we're going. It's not constructive. I don't see the way out right now through politics, right, unless it redefines itself and repurposes itself.
Why are you not doing that? Letting anybody know who you're for, who you're against?
Room for issues, where I'm standing on this, and bills and laws and policies, etc.
Yeah.
On purpose.
I figured it's on purpose.
On purpose right now. Taking sides on a political issue right now, to me, precedes the discussion of something larger and much more important, like the questions we were asking a minute ago. The definition is, what the hell is politics? But you got to read, before we start saying, hey, this is where I stand, this is where I stand, which creates already a divide, or 50% of the people are going to come at you. Let's answer these other questions about purpose, democracy. All right, what is progress? How about this question? Do we really want to be a United States of America? And I don't say that with arrogance or condescension. It's a question we got to answer. What is leadership? Why is our nation's trust level so low with our leaders, with ourselves, with each other? That's more interesting to me before we start hopping in the middle of politics going, well, this is where I stand here and this is where I stand here. Everybody needs to be in the conversation to answer the questions that I was just bringing up.
What do you think of that, Marshall?
So I just want to jump in here before they give their opinions and let you guys know that what he just did was absolute bullshitting. He didn't answer the question at all. He's refused to answer any question when it comes to any actual political stance other than wearing masks, which is like the easiest fucking position ever to take, obviously being pro-mask. Like, good fucking job, dude. Anyway, me and Zach were actually recently listening to this NPR interview with Matthew McConaughey. It was like a live NPR interview on Twitter, and they're basically their Clubhouse, ripoff feature where people can like listen in and then engage with the interview when they're asked. Like, they raise their hand and then the interviewer lets them talk and ask a question to McConaughey. And actually, a friend of the show, Christian Smalls, who's a Amazon union advocate and activist, he happened to be in the listening room listening to this interview, and he raised his hand to contribute, to ask a question. They let him, and he asked Matthew McConaughey very simply about union rights. He said, do you support unionization? Do you support our efforts to unionize at Amazon, etc.? Very innocuous. It was not, phrased or framed in a radical leftist idea. It was not even necessarily framed in an anti-capitalist, way. It was just like, do you support unions, essentially? And Matthew McConaughey totally dropped the ball, totally fucked up the answer. He was like, well, unions are important, but I also understand the argument against unions. And, I need to know more about this before I wade in. And, I like this, but I don't know about this. It was a total mealy-mouthed, both sides answer. When obviously it should have been a total layup. Just say, obviously I support unions. Of course I support unions. Unions built this country. I'm part of a union. Of course you should be able to be part of a union as well. Of course labor should have the right to organize, etc. It was the biggest layup ever. It would have been so easy to just say something uncontroversial as, I support unions. Of course I support unions. Of course unions are important aspect of labor rights. That's about as easy as a question, he could have answered. But he totally fucked it up. He, like I said, gave this mealy-mouthed fucking bullshit answer, refusing to say what was very obviously true, that of course people should have the right to unionize in the workspace. Again, he couldn't even get that right. This has been his answer to essentially every question he's asked, is that, oh, I'm above the fray. I'm looking at deeper questions. I'm looking at these bigger questions. All these people just want to fucking, get on this partisan bullshit, and everyone's so polarized. And I'm thinking about bigger issues. It's like, dude, you can't. What do you mean you're thinking about bigger issues? What do you mean you can't take a stand on unions or X, Y, and Z policy position? These are very important things. This is what the fabric of society is made up of. Stop pretending like everything is this abstract fucking equation and that you don't want to get in on the minutia, when in fact the minutia is very much so, like I said, the fabric of this country. We can't have a united country without unions, for example. So how are you going to preach all this idiocy, all these vague cliches and platitudes, while refusing to take a stand on any specifics?
Yeah, I mean, look, this is obviously the union answer mealy-mouthed bullshit. We don't have the exact quotes from him there, but I did go ahead and pull this up here. I'll send it to you in the chat, Gavin, so we can get it pulled up on screen. This was an answer to a very similar layup question. It was about SB1, the voting restrictions bill that's going through Texas, right? You've probably heard about it. Republicans are basically trying to crack down on voter registrations in Texas, make it difficult for people to vote, add some extra hurdles. So he got asked this pretty straightforward question, right? So, she's like, okay, all right. And voting rights, how do you stand on that? Voting rights? How do I stand on that? What do you mean? I think SB1. And what part of it do you mean? How do I stand on that? Meaning the Republicans' legislation to restrict voting. Oh, to restrict the voting. Yeah. This is what he responds with. I don't know enough about that to be able to discuss the details on how I feel about that. I think it should be easier to vote. I think everybody should. If you're an American citizen and you're of age and you don't have your criminal record, which I also take fucking beef with, like, what the fuck do you mean? I stole a pack of fucking bubble gum. I can't have fucking the right to vote. Or I don't even think, I think everybody should be able to vote. I don't care if you're a felon that's currently rotting in prison. Like, I think that you should fucking have the right to vote. But society, most people don't feel that way. That you should be able to vote. I think that should be, as I said, accessible to go vote, but their argument, what's the GOP Republican argument right now? Basically against that, what I just said. Like, he has no idea what he's fucking talking about. He doesn't know anything about the legislations. And if he's just a regular fucking Joe, that's fine. It's so obvious he's been living in his bubble. But the fucking thing is, this guy has a weird messiah complex. Like, he's going to come out here and like touch people and like fucking save the union. And, what do we need to have? We need to have values. We need to respect each other and ourselves. We need to love each other and ourselves. We need to build great things and do great things in this country. And it's like, yeah, that actually is really salient as a political message to people, right? Because most people also don't know what the fuck is going on. So you can make your way as a politician that way. It's a completely empty bag of empty bag of goods, right? You're selling them fucking nothing. You're selling them Krispy Kreme donuts, just air and no sustenance. So I don't know. I think that everything that he's revealed himself to be is that he's just an out of touch aristocrat that thinks he's going to walk into politics and save the day. But let's hear what the perspective of the guys from Breaking Points is.
On Twitter, because it really speaks to why we both had a really deep reaction. You said that in that segment, Matthew McConaughey showed a better understanding of politics than people in this space were in DC. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, I've explained it here on the show. Every time, right now, we're the #1 podcast on Spotify for news. Thank you. Shout out to everybody. And people ask me in DC all the time because they just don't get it. They're like, how is this possible? And I go, here's the difference. You care about capital P politics. Capital P politics is exactly what he said, which is that, where do you stand on Texas's SB 2? Where do you stand on the abortion implementation? What about the January 6th commission? This is all BS, in my opinion. You know what politics is to me? How does these economic shortages at the Port of LA impact your life? This Facebook thing, should you care or not? Using technology, it's how are we being governed or should we govern them? Education, the way that we have our kids in schools. Can you think of a more important question? My monologue is going to be about the crisis of American men and about the single male wages and the drop off in the last 30 years. To me, that's something called small p politics. What it means to be a human in a society. And I know that sounds really vague, but it's really important. The ways that you and I interact with the world, there are all sorts of meta choices that are being made by people in charge that impact that on a huge day-to-day basis. The people who impacted our trade policy with China 30 years ago set us up for where we're at right now in terms of our shortages. The people who made it, and internet regulations and more, made it so that Amazon could exist. These are all questions that we actually have to answer. McConaughey is getting at, look, I don't think that's politics to me. What he's getting at is the major meta question that Crystal and I try to answer here every day. Why are people so angry all the time? Why does everybody hate each other? Why is negative partisanship at the highest level ever in modern American history? And why is it that Donald Trump, a buffoon of every metric, got 75 million votes in the last 2020 presidential election?
And Matthew McConaughey didn't address any of that in any sort of a substantive way. Any of those questions that you just posed as, the small p politics or whatever the fuck you're rambling about, none of that was substantively addressed by Matthew McConaughey in that clip or in any other clip. I don't know how it's not so fucking obvious to you that he's straight bullshitting because he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. He's an elitist, out of touch, rich dude that is for some reason flirting with a political run because he's bored with his life and maybe doesn't find as much fulfillment in acting, and now he wants to get attention this way. Again, great actor, no shade, but how do you not see that what he's doing is straight bullshitting and obfuscating from having to take any actual position on anything that might be controversial, aka what every fucking politician tries to do? This is pure politician speak. He's not acting like some outsider. He's acting like a classic politician and refusing to answer questions by defaulting to vague platitude, cliche language that, I don't know how you see this, that is anything other than what it is. It's not some brilliant pontificating. It's not some insightful fucking meditation or, actual insightful dialogue. No, it's literally just politician bullshit speak to get out of having to answer questions and to get out of revealing the fact that he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. Like on that voting rights question, he didn't answer it that way because he's above it and because, he fucking, has a bigger picture in mind, which is how's America really do? He answered it that way because he didn't have a fucking answer. He answered it that way because he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. So all that he can do is spout this mealy-mouthed garbage that essentially means absolutely nothing. And again, I think it's crazy that Saagar is falling for this because, again, say Matthew McConaughey got into office. What the fuck do you think he would do differently than any other politician? What the fuck do you really think he would bring to the table other than any other goddamn politician that, Breaking Points would normally shit shit on. And speaking of breaking points, he mentions that, oh, we're the #1 show on Spotify. You know why that is? Because people like the fact that you're not afraid to get into specifics. Like the fact that you're not afraid to take a real stand on issues that you feel passionately about. It creates a good dynamic. It's not because you sit here pontificating about vague shit about, oh, the country's so divisive and the country's so polarized and, oh, we need to embrace our values. That's the opposite of why people like your show. People like your show because you're not afraid to get specific, because you're not afraid to actually talk about.
Oh shit, Gavin disappeared, but I'll pick up where he left off. Yeah, 100%. Look, the thing is that Saagar should, if he actually cared about the crisis among young men, people who aren't making enough money, they aren't making enough wages, whatever, and then I'll pass the ball back to Gavin, he would be worried about shit like, oh, we need more unions. It would be a huge red flag to him when he saw that Matthew McConaughey couldn't just come out and, like Gavin said, take the easy layup. That's just fucking freebie. Yes, unions made this country what it is. I think regardless of the political affiliation you have, workers have a right to be represented and they have a right to organize. No, obviously, easiest question in the fucking world. If you can't answer that honestly, then there's no fucking way that you're going to go and represent workers once you get in charge, once you get elected, once your teeth are taken out for good, right? So this is just all bullshit. And it's like, okay, Matthew, if you actually gave a shit about any of this, maybe you would have done your fucking homework and realized that the biggest threat that you have is the establishment, the money, and the opulence, and that the people that you're over here trying to act like they're just as fucking good as the other guys over here, they're all actually paid off by the same people that fund your fucking films, the aristocracy. The same people that made you rich as hell through Hollywood cinema are the same people that are pulling the powers that are keeping working class men down, Saagar, right? If that's what your fucking concern is, yeah, working class, everybody is kept fucking down, obviously. That's how capitalism works. So if you're not going there to confront those very obvious things that Saagar spends so much of his life talking about, actually rather astutely in some cases, I just don't understand how you can fucking miss this very obvious fucking stunt. This like, were you like,
so let's move on.
It is no different than people getting excited about Oprah running for office, right? Like, oh, she's our real president. Like, go fuck yourself, dude.
Yeah, 100%. And again, I don't understand how Saagar doesn't see this for what it is, which is literally just the bullshitting of an out-of-touch elitist. Like, he's not some brilliant political pontificator. He's not proposing any solutions to the problems that you think he is. I don't get it. It's just rambling garbage to me. But let's take a few more minutes of this in before we move on to our last segment.
You can like those people, you can hate them, whatever. You should want to know the answer to that. This is our country. And what he's getting at is, do we want to be one country? A lot of people, it seems, don't. I mean, a lot of people hate each other so much that they're at a point where they're like, it's irreconcilable differences. How much of left politics, and I mean that by like center-left establishment Democrat politics, is just, we need to deliver a knockout punch to the Republicans. Pack the Supreme Court, whatever with the Senate, and just make it so that our national popular vote, and then that's it. Boom, it's over. And then how much of Republican politics is just weaponizing some of these structural advantages I just talked about, let's all be honest, and making it so that they can defend the interests of like 22% of the population who disproportionately live in the American South. Does that sound like a good system to you? I mean, these are questions where you have to ask, is this how it's all supposed to work? Can we change it? This is why, look, everybody was going after Andrew Yang. This is why I was interested in what Andrew Yang had to say. Andrew Yang's trying to answer the right question. He goes, hey, is there anything we can do about this? I mean, does it have to be this way? And this is what McConaughey is trying to get at too. And I know a lot of people are going to be mad or whatever. Obviously, he's obviously liberal. Okay, like that's not, an issue. But to me, he is speaking to the right question. What do you think?
See, I actually disagree. I mean, look, we just spoke with Andrew. I think McConaughey and Yang are doing two different things here.
Sure.
So I just want to pull out what is so incredibly important here for everybody, which is basically that if you're looking at what McConaughey is actually saying, because this was all over Twitter, all these people were saying like—
everyone was dunking on
Yeah, people were dunking like, why didn't he give a specific answer on SB1? Why didn't he give a specific answer on how he would handle the abortion issue? That is zooming too far in to the political system right now. Because the key thing is, Beto O'Rourke is most likely also going to run. Kara Swisher also did an interview with Beto, and guess who's down in the polls right now? Beto is down in the polls.
Dramatic.
So it's very frustrating. If you're basically a Democrat right now, you should ask yourself, hey, like, is Beto coming out swinging with like this hyper-partisan take or that polarizing take? Is that actually the particularly effective way to get elected and govern in a complicated system sort of ourselves? The part that Matthew did here that was so important, the part that I'm obsessed with, is he just took a step back and said, hey, let's actually answer these questions. And this is why I'm saying this is what
He literally didn't answer anything. He just vaguely pontificated about bullshit that every other politician talks about, which is how divided the country is. And oh, shouldn't we get back to a good place where everyone gets along again? And oh, the death of civility and all this fucking horseshit that you people usually rail against when politicians default to, instead of answering specifics about these aren't like meaningless questions. These are very serious policy questions that affect the lives of Texans and Americans in a very intimate way. You can't get through an entire fucking campaign election season and not answer any questions about policy if you're running to make policy. This is absolute insanity. And yeah, I agree. Beto's approach wasn't, the right one either, to come out swinging against gun ownership and say we're going to take your fucking guns, as he did when running for president. I don't think that's going to do him any favors either. But the answer to that is not just to, refuse to, define yourself ideologically and to just, default to vague platitude cliche bullshit every time you're asked a question of substance. And it's not like these interviewers are just trying to get him to say some like hyper partisan thing or like take some hyper partisan position. They literally just want to get a pulse on his political instincts, because that's something important to know if you're trying to lead people.
Yeah, 100%. It's such mealy-mouthed bullshit. It's because he's an out-of-touch elite that doesn't know a goddamn thing about politics. If he was actually fucking researched and was doing this from some broader strategy, he would have been like SB1. He was like, let's take a broad abstract approach. He wouldn't have fucking just like not known what the hell she was talking about, and not like. I guess some people like the fact that he wants to, tell me both sides of this and then I'll mediate it. But to me, it just seems like you're completely under-researched. You haven't put any thought into this, and you just thought because you're rich and you're a celebrity and you can put cameras in front of you that you could become the governor. And I'm sorry, but that's not good enough for me. I thought that wasn't good enough for all of us. I thought we wanted people who were well-educated. I thought we wanted people who were, actually gave a shit about these policies. And I don't mean well-educated as in went to some fucking fancy college. I mean somebody who knows what the fucking policies are. Somebody who knows how we're going to fight for him, how we're going to strategize, how we're going to twist arms, how we're going to whip votes. That's what I want. Matthew McConaughey doesn't have a fucking idea how to do that. And I guarantee you, after he's exhausted himself from putting into any actual effort into his campaign, should he decide to, he'll just want to kick back and relax when he finally gets into office, and nothing will fucking change. He'll just be another figurehead. It's such horse shit. It's so obvious to see through the shit, and I don't know what the fuck they're on that with Saagar and Marshall, who also I've seen make good points in the past before, but I don't know. This was just so fucking. This was just a bad take.
Yeah, it really was, and I think someone got it right in our comments. I'm trying to find the exact comment, but someone basically just said that, oh, you guys don't get it. Yeah, you guys don't get it. It's a setup to get Matthew. So yeah, absolutely. They're basically just trying to get him on an interview for Breaking Points. I think is probably why they're not going after him more so. I mean, I get it that Saagar means what he says for sure, but I also do think that they might be going a little bit harder on him if they weren't trying to tee up an interview themselves, and that would be interesting. I'd like to see them talk to Matthew McConaughey, and I hope they would actually ask him some hard questions and try to get some answers from him when it comes to policy, because again, you can't purport to be some like political fucking thinker or leader and not have answers to very easy questions like, do you support unions? You want to talk about why this country's divided? Well, maybe it's because there's no fucking organized labor anymore, and everyone feels like they're pitted against each other in this crazy fucking dog-eat-dog world. Unions gave people from all different ideological backgrounds a way to connect with each other, to foster solidarity with your neighbor against the fucking boss. That's a very real way that used to, solidarity was fostered in this country. It really connected people of all races, religions, classes, creeds, etc. And we don't have that anymore because unions are, almost non-existent. So much of the workforce is non-unionized right now. So, that would have been an easy way. If you want to talk about partisanship and division, then come out swinging for fucking union rights, dude. There's the answer for you.